I always like to start at the end with some sort of retrospective on what happened and an invitation to come with me on what was quite a long weekend.
소총 공연으로 해서 약 400.
Yeah, so as you can see, a lot happened, and I'm trying really hard to get less and less bitter these days. You know, as I ride the train up, I keep reminding myself that what's better than this? It's been a couple years since I did anything that great on YouTube and put together more or less a full-length episode of something. And watching this, thinking about it, I'm certainly a different person than I was then. So we'll start in Seoul in a little bit of reverse order. Usually any trip in Seoul starts with a need to buy a cheap coffee to go to the bathroom. And on my way to the bathroom, inside the building, I snapped this shot. Very fun. The clock for Ho Chi Minh was quite off, and the worker and I had quite a laugh over that. Then we were walking through a neighborhood that is hip and up and coming. It wasn't necessarily somewhere I would choose to be, but there were actually plenty of great shots to be had here. And I really loved this sort of double exposure feeling through the window into a shop. You got the guy inside the figure there. And then we walked into what is either an official or non-official shop. The audio is not hanging out, and again, I don't know about the authenticity of said Labubu, but these shops are interesting to see. It certainly does seem to say a very specific brand. Slap me for luck. You know, it's not all highbrow photos. Sometimes it's just for fun, or what about snap me for luck? So we're walking through and starting to warm up the eye as I do, and getting more and more into the zone. A nice scene set up here up in front of a shop in Pudongsan with the scooter. And then we get to our breakfast for the day. My friend was hankering for some American breakfast food, and we took ourselves there. Color was popping, especially after we hit ourselves into the bottomless 1.5 hours boozy brunch, 25,000 won per head, accompanied by biscuits and gravy, chicken, mashed potato pancakes, and I took some photos. And then I ate some more biscuits and gravy. And we got a timer brought to the table because we needed a timer. And this might be one of my favorite shots from the morning. It's not particularly meaningful, but I thought the framing was really nice. And again, still thinking about the biscuits and gravy as we walk around, and after about an hour of mimosas, I thought, yeah, let's get some fries too. As far as like just aesthetic forms go, I really loved the red and teal contrast on this shot, and so that was the way the morning sort of unfolded. Sat there looking across the devastation, having eaten everything in sight, drank all of the 2.5 bottles that they decided to bring us, and we were ready to go. And here, before we left, my friend had to run me through their eclectic collection of pins. We've got a mine from the DMZ I Heart the DMZ pin that they purchased, a train ticket, the Yukejang pin, which I think I encouraged them to buy, and then, of course, a tiger that looks like the K-pop Demon Hunters tiger, but is not the K-pop Demon Hunters tiger. And then walking through Seongsu, we came to scenes that are very familiar. Sort of the cardboard collectors are everywhere, and I'm quite used to shooting them. It was, if I forgot to mention, my friend's birthday, so we got a nice set of pancakes with some cream on top. Happy birthday. And for my friend who loves towels, here's a nice towel shot for your birthday. Actually, I love taking pictures of towels, and they're everywhere to dry. So that moves us into later in the day, and at this point we had split off. They decided to go to the absolute bane of my existence, across town to the Apple store, which I knew was going to be the last place on earth I wanted to be. So I decided to walk through the neighborhoods. Now, I am not going to pretend like what happened didn't happen here, and I loved walking through this neighborhood, and I will be back again because there are scenes like this little store, little street, and you know exactly where this is. But this is a pretty normal old part of Seoul, and there's a lot of places that look like this still. And yes, the big lie. Now, this film, I guess I don't have to say this, but I cooked this film. And I knew I cooked this film about a week later when I was hanging out with my friend, and we were brewing up some beer and soju developer, and we checked my finger thermometer against a real thermometer. And I've used a finger thermometer for a couple years here now without much problem. Even when I was doing hotter dev and now doing colder dev, we found my finger thermometer is about 9 degrees off Celsius. So 9 degrees Celsius is what, maybe about 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So I have been pushing everything, at least a little bit. And the film from this day, let's just say it went down the drain. There's one shot that I did keep, and I kept it partially to show how bad I cooked the film, and it's coming up soon. But I do need to get back to these spaces, and yeah, c'est la vie, no? But luckily I had some X-ray film that I had shot the week before. Yes, here it is, the cooked film. Ugh, I don't even like looking at it. But that X-ray film kind of fit. It was a similar neighborhood, and I hadn't posted it much of anywhere, so I thought I would slip it in. And I considered, no, I didn't really consider it, but I wanted to at least make note that these shots are not from this day, even though they look like they could be from a very similar neighborhood. Actually a very different neighborhood if you know what to look for. So we're walking through this part of Seoul and coming across a lot of very interesting and normal Seoul scenes. We're walking through a mountain, You know, I always get a kick out of when people say there isn't that much green space in Seoul, because the green space is really everywhere in the city. And green space, mountains, nooks, crannies, anything you could want. And so it's kind of prime for photography. And I would snap away, and then I would insert photos from a different weekend, and then I would snap away again. Now, having cooked the film, it's kind of a bummer, because walking around I remember the shots that I was taking, and we're coming up on a couple that I had really hoped to develop well. You can see right here with the video camera, I'm like, oh, this is kind of shot that I love. You know, there's towels, there's some peppers outside of the window, and if I had the audio on, you might hear the F2 shutter go ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk here, because I love me some peppers. Like that. Lomo on the other side of Seoul. So, as a go-to lover, I love the late summer when people leave them outside to dry, and there's a lot of opportunities to get photos like that. And of course, you know, more buildings, more acceptable substitutes for this walk. And here's another place outside this laundromat that I was really, was really excited for this photo. There were maybe 4 or 5 photos that day that I was looking forward to, and that was one of them. Now, I would keep walking and actually ran into what I considered to be quite an adorable scene. Now, in Korea, there's a lot of cats, and some of those cats are pretty smart, like this one, sitting outside, waiting for chicken delivery. And yeah, this is not the first time I've seen a cat waiting outside of a restaurant. So more X-ray around Seoul, a little bit outside of Seoul, and we walked through, and you know, Seoul is so beautiful, and especially so in the right weather. And one of the challenges to photographing Seoul is I always want to well represent the topography of the city. And it's actually kind of a challenge to properly photograph, because Seoul is so hilly, but it's really hard to get good views. You know, most of the images that you see of nice views of Seoul, not of Seoul, nice views of hills in Korea, and like cityscapes on hills come from Busan or come from other parts of the country. It's kind of hard to get that nice hilly shot in Seoul proper. So here we're going to begin a walk through the traditional market over on the west side of Seoul. And I think these markets have become a really big attraction for people. I'm not actually the biggest fan of doing street photography in tight places like this. I don't know. But I do really love taking pictures of food and fruit, and something George and I talk about a lot, Buddy up north, is that we both really have an affinity for handwritten signs in English or Korean. And there's certainly something special to the worn old signs that you can see in the market. And we walk by a person pushing a baby or pushing a dog in a cart, and there's just food everywhere. We can kind of pivot to an old photo of some drying peppers, and you see on the left there's the classic BYC, and on the right we've still got some banchan being served, and just more Korean foods and some duck and looks like little bits of John, the old Pepper house. And we come up to a photo. I was excited. I really liked this bench. Made a nice frame of it, but again, still in a period of time from some cooked film. Yeah, and here I'm thinking in the head, wow, really got a cool frame of this bench. And we walk through, there's a lot of old shops. I got some ice cream stores as well that take up space in these markets now. A lot of automated shops that Korea seems to be becoming quite famous for. And here I was enjoying this. The light was getting really good. X-ray film is around ISO 5, so taking these market shots can be a little bit of a challenge, but at a close to wide open, a willingness to get a little bit of blur, we can still get the job done well. And I thought these lanterns were going to get me a great shot going into the restaurant, but no. So here, another shot looking into a restaurant. I actually took this on a digital camera a little bit later, and I thought it had that sort of matching this window scene here, so I pulled it. You might have actually seen that on Substack if you are active over there. And so we're about finishing up in the market. This market, you know, I think a lot of people are really familiar with the big markets in Korea, and this is not necessarily a big market, but it does sit on the edge of the everything new. And I'll transition from this photo that I took on some breaking down X-ray film into the newness of the city that's right outside the market. And from there I arrive at the Apple store. You can see my F2 hanging out with some new Apple products as we wait for my friend to finalize their purchase. And there they are with their new Apple, and we are on our way. We ended up in a wonderful pizza restaurant in Hongdae called Detroit Pizzas, and they actually did it right. They did it right. From here, we hung around a little bit. We're walking through the city, having fun here and there. And yeah, this is kind of where the night ended. So we wake up, day number 2. I said this was a long weekend. Day number 2, we get over to the dance festival. Now, I had been trying all week to get to this dance festival, but as you can see from looking up, or as you could see from the day before, the weather was not great. Now, a couple weeks earlier, I was at Fashion Week, and at Fashion Week, I had just been looking a lot at photos by Ernst Haas, and I was thinking about how to make good use of motion blur. And really, I had an idea to shoot trichromes at Fashion Week, and I did that. But a couple weeks later, getting to the dance festival, I thought this was the place to utilize that motion blur. And I was quite happy with the results. Now, of course, at any festival in Korea, you have to go check out the food offerings. And we made our way over, and I grabbed a lot of food, specifically a nice fish cake, fried sausage, and it was well wrapped and delicious flavor. Now, this performance is actually one that I didn't photograph as well as I could have, and it was a little bit of a bummer. The knife spinners, the knife dancers were quite good and very interesting. Now we get to the event photography. I'm pretty good at event photography, and this gave me a lot of chances to sort of sit back and sort of work a very specific angle And having worked that angle for a while, I was kind of aware of where on the stage set up my good shots. And I should have liked to get a little bit closer, but I was not official press at this event, so I had to sort of sit back while the press photographers worked in front of me. But that's okay. The performance was fantastic. I really enjoyed the variety that I saw, and I believe this is a troupe doing a Southeast Asian lotus dance, and they really did a great job. I guess I'm not a dance judge, but you can see they seem to be in pretty good unison. And it was a wonderful opportunity with the fans to work away at some of that motion blur, trying to freeze the dancers a little bit more and let the motion of the fan carry a little bit of blur, or in a different shot let the sort of bell jar of the dress carry a little bit of blur. Here I'm quite sharp, but the composition is very spot on. And this dance was one I think I took the longest video of. So you see a lot of it here. You'll see it in the beginning of this video. And they're finishing up. I think they're remaking the flower. And I got a couple photos here. I think this is actually from the middle, but seems to fit the ending. Now we're going to switch over to a more traditional Korean dance, and I should note earlier that I don't know how I didn't take any video of the dance competition that was going on. They have universities dancing in competition against each other, and took quite a few photos that I really enjoyed. Now these two were phenomenal to photograph, and their sort of chemistry on stage is working really well together. And I had the nice fortune is both of them, the other photographers had left at this point, so both of them actually would look right at my camera, which created quite a few really nice images that I was able to capture of them. And the chemistry and the movement between the dancers was good. The audience, I think, was more familiar with the Korean style, and there was a good audience interaction. And overall, this one, I think, was a good note to send it off on, and I got, I think, some of the best shots of the day that I took were from this dance. Now, still not giving up on motion blur, I was able to capture a couple shots that I thought worked pretty well before going back into the festival. Now, there's a lot of photography this weekend, and most weekends get that photography from me. And a couple things I, really was working on and learned. Of course, I learned that my finger is nowhere near as accurate a thermometer as I had once expected it. I learned how much rain I'm going to get in the fall, and that trend has continued on. I learned about a lot of dances. I learned that some college students really got the moves, and I got to enjoy having my shot blocked continuously by various event photographers, and I once again reminded myself how much I actually really enjoy shooting the D200. And it's at this point I think I find myself thinking I'm really falling into a color on digital, color professional style on digital, and fun, enjoyable shoot around on film, black and white, developed at home. And that makes a lot of sense for my own workflow, and I feel that way strongly until I get back a roll of color that I really love, and I keep going back and forth like that. So So maybe I'll share more.